not to throw us too off topic on that thought, because it's a bit more to do with the kind of change in Halo as a series. Something that I've definitely noticed, especially since 343 has taken over, is like kind of turning like as though Master Chief is like a superhero who did it all by himself. As though there wasn't like a massive amount of people and like aspects of the military that were supporting him and that were there with him the whole time. Like the idea that
they forget about all those Marines on the Gauss cannon in the back seat.
Well, it's just do you guys remember the opening cutscene for Halo 5? Do you guys remember like what that cutscene was?
I don't.
Is that the one where they
far.
surf down a mountain and shoot at Prometheans?
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
yes.
I remember that.
Yes, it's basically the long and short.
Oh,
of it
that
is,
one. Yeah,
yeah,
that was
Team
weird.
Osiris that were the main characters of Halo 5. Basically they jump out of a Pelican and just like fly into this war zone and just blow past a whole bunch of Covenant and Prometheans fighting each other like pretty effortlessly, like superheroes flying around with their jetpacks and everything. And from an animation perspective, it's a really cool cutscene, but like I think that's really bad in terms of like reflecting the change in like what's happened with Spartans. That it used to be that yes, Master Chief was the most powerful person in like any given situation, but that it was a massive military effort, like a big effort involving Marines and involving ODSTs and command, combined arms warfare and everything like that, to this place now where it's like, well, Master Chief, he's like the one guy, the superhero who will like solve all of the problems, and that you can kind of see it reflected here that, like you said, Rags, you don't get the impression that like the military component of the story is particularly prominent, even though so much of the story is focused on the human conflict and like the UNSC and ONI and all of the infighting there, and yet it really doesn't feel like much of a military story at all. And I think a big part of it might just be that it's difficult to see the military component in like the battle situations. It's just John Halo blasting through everything single-handedly for the most part.
It's in between the occasional intermittent terrible fight sequence. You never get that scene where like here are all the commanders and the COs and the people in charge and the higher ranking people, and they're in the forward operating base or on their ship, and they're looking at this big tactical display of what's happening in the battle. They're communicating with this person who tells the soldiers to do this. This person tells this ship to do that. You get no sense of tactics or strategy happening. So there's no... If you go into this show thinking it'll be like the games or books, and there's going to be this like this war component to it that's interesting and tactical and strategic, you're just going to be super disappointed, because the people who made this don't have any interest in that or don't know anything about it, or it's not the story they want to tell or have any interest in telling.
I would say
it's kind of an issue if you're adapting a Halo.
I would say that you would also struggle to really care about what's going on in the storyline if you haven't read the books, though, and that's what makes it a bit of a paradox to watch. Who is this show for?
Yeah,
totally agree with that. Like the idea that the show is made for people who don't watch Halo. If you didn't know anything about Halo, you would be lost on the most basic of things of like, why is the Covenant even at war with humanity? You would be absolutely lost on those basics.
That is something that became pretty obvious for me, was there's so many moments of just like, oh, I was supposed to know what that is, wasn't I? Like from something else. Well, like,
there is a non-zero amount of people in the world who will watch this show, and for whatever reason, the show will make them want to play the games, and then they'll kind of experience it in reverse order. Most people will play the games and then watch the show, but there are some people who will watch the show and then play the games, and I can't help but think what a bizarre experience that is going to be for them to go from the show to the games and see like, oh, this is completely different in basically every way.
I remember a distinct memory of him raging with the Iron Man perspective.
In episode 5. In episode 5, they have a big battle, and John Halo jumps on a Banshee and flies it directly into a Phantom, and it explodes with him at the epicenter, and he's fine. And he just walks out covered in Covenant blood, and he starts punching the mandibles off of an elite, and he's screaming with the Iron Man POV, and it doesn't even make sense, because when they cut to what's actually happening, his head is like moving, so if he was looking at the elite, his like eyes would have to keep moving, but because they don't care, He's just staring straight ahead, screaming, which is one of many of because that's the thing I remember most from season 1 is John Halo screaming. My favorite one is when he screams, "What am I?"
Yeah.
After touching the keystone. I love it. It's
because we know their attitude, right?
What
the whole
am I?
having emotion, having a person's face doing emotion, that's art. That's storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
you're like,
he screams, "What am I?" Or he lunges at Halsey in an attempt to beat her to death because he's so mad, and then screaming.
He can get in line if he wants to punch her to death. Okay.
He's such an unhinged, like that to me sticks out as the most
Are you gonna say loser or lunatic?
I was like, I'm indecisive. I think
because you started with Lou and then you just quit, and I was like, which one was it gonna be?
I think that's the main legacy of season 1 is the absolute destruction of Master Chief to the point that he is John Halo or Jimmy Rings or Master Chief.
Jimmy Rings.
I do like Jimmy Rings. It's a fun name. But
that's fun. John Halo encapsulates it excellently as part of the meta meme of this is John the person. This is person from game. This is game person.
Yes, this is him. You recognize him, right? And it's just like this horrible facsimile, just like these bits of his armor clinging together with like bits of flesh and a skeleton, like a big skull at the top. But I mean, you think about like what you see in season 1 in terms of the creation of a central character is that they basically like created somebody who is impossible to predict to where the writers can make him do whatever they need him to do to create drama. He's unhinged. Useful. He's insane. He doesn't know what his emotions are. He's discovering them for the first time, and that's making him crazy. So therefore, when he makes a bunch of insane, irrational decisions that allow the plot to move forward, you can't complain because that's just who he is, a lunatic.
And for people who might not
such
remember,
a useful archetype.
Throughout the first season, Chief is touching the artifact and it's unearthing memories of him getting kidnapped by Halsey as a kid and being put through the Spartan program and basically tortured through the process. And he's like, I get that he's mad about that, but like I still don't think Chief, like character from the games, even going through that experience, would like go totally unhinged like that and try to punch Halsey or, you know, stomp that alien's face. Like it felt way too jarring. And it made me kind of not like him. Like, yeah, it's just too extreme.
A bit of a problem that the show has, and by the way, I would say like who the Spartans are, particularly with their emotion suppressing pellets. It's interesting because you've got the scene playing right now. Mauler has been like massively
Fringy.
Further confused.
You can't just say that and not explain to the people what you mean by emotional suppressing pellets.
Okay, so basically the lore in the show.
You say it so matter of factly.
The Spartans have emotion suppress. It's not that the Spartans are naturally stoic as a result of essentially years of training and conditioning. It's not that their past experiences have actually turned them into who they are. It's that they have a pellet in their spine that suppresses their memories and makes them robots. Except it kind of doesn't, because not only is there a lot of like confusing elements in season 1 that make it very unclear, like what exactly does a Spartan look like without their pellet? Because they certainly show emotions in season 1, but like in season 2, you've got this scene where they introduce a new Spartan team we've never seen before called Cobalt, who are aggressive, confrontational, jealous, snarky. Like they have a whole bunch of traits, but they essentially chastising Silver Team, which is the main team of Spartans that includes John Halo, because they have feelings now because they removed their pellets. It's very, very, very confusing, and it helps the writers because it makes it even harder to pin down who exactly John Halo is in season 1 and continuing into season 2, and really all of the Spartans. It creates a confusing aspect of like, who are they actually and what do they actually believe in? And it was on the point that you were talking about, John, in terms of the nature of like this aspect of his history being something that's upsetting to him, something that in season 1 they don't really want to deal with at all. And it feels like it's part of the reason why the Covenant storyline is in the background so frequently, is that you have to pair how he's feeling about all of that with who he is now and the unique position he's in to fight in the Human Covenant War. But it's not something that they pair together to explore, which is really stupid because it's just good drama. That's interesting. Like somebody who's had a really terrible thing happen to them, the consequence of which has now made them a uniquely capable person to save humanity. And how does that make them feel? And how much are they willing to set aside as part of that broader conflict, but instead they're just like, don't want to deal with that. I suppose, by the way, as you know, to almost like try and tie off the relevant things from season 1, Quan was a major part of season 1, guys. Do you remember?
Yeah, Quan was huge.
Storyline.
She was like the prominent character of the first episode.
She had a whole episode. Show. It was all her own. Episode 7 was a Quan episode.
In closing on what you were just saying, by the way, because I was just trying to remember the quote. Futurama, it's like being a robot is great, but we don't have emotions, and that makes me sad. Like that would summarize their approach with the Spartans.
Definitely.
I would also just like to add regarding the pellets that the removal of them was the dumbest shit. Like, because they are performing self-surgery on themselves with a knife at the base of their spines.
They're being told what to do. Yeah, Master Chief was told what to do verbally by Cortana in his head, and then he performed the surgery that he could not see on his spine and pulled the pellet out.
Well, and also
he was standing up in front of a bathroom mirror, naked.
And the instruction that Cortana was giving wasn't even that specific. She was just saying like 10 centimeters or something, but it's like, which direction? You haven't told him. Like, you need to tell.
Incision, is it horizontal or vertical?
He's got a blade in his spine. You got to tell him exactly what to do. Otherwise, like, you risk paralysis.
I think the funniest part of that scene is that John Halo was seriously going to try and do it himself before she told him how to do it. He was actually holding a knife at his back with no idea where exactly it was, because he was actually going to give it a shot without her help.
Yeah,
it's that kind of, take charge attitude that I really like about John Halo. He's just going for it. You can't be indecisive. You can't have analysis paralysis. You have to perform surgery and then have actual paralysis.
Yeah, you can't let someone stop you with rules about stabbing yourself in the spine. That red tape.
Are you a man or a mouse?
Yeah.
Look at how
I really don't like that his visor is shattered. That feels like a huge problem.
So cringe. You got to show it. Show the visor. It's so cringe.
Because it's like how's he going to get back off the ring without his helmet being airtight? But then next season they're going to pull something out of their ass where it's just like point a little laser beam at the helmet and then boom, it's fixed.
It'll be Forerunner
nanobots or something.
Forerunner nanobots.
How are we going to see his face?
Well, it is funny if they were like, we're keeping his helmet on the whole season. You're like, really? And then they have that Anakin face of like,
why didn't they just make the visor capable of becoming more translucent,
like the ODST visors?
Like it can become a bit more you could like press a button or a function and it just sort of it ungolds. It de-aurifies.
It would be too expensive to make that prop.
And this image, man, it's so gross. It's like they've shoved an imposter in there, like they've jammed him in there, and look at him staring through this corpse that he's wearing.
Another skinwalker.
How dare you sit where he didn't sit?
Well, you guys remember the brilliant line that he said in this scene? The wonderful line. You got to play it, Molly. You got to play it for everybody to see.
Are you talking about when he says, "I am Halo," or is this when?
No.
And I am all the Covenant.
No, John, you are the flood.
The line where he says they took my image and bent it to their own purposes.
Damn.
Oh yeah.
I did share that on Twitter.
Say that out loud.
It's too good.
Not everybody uses Twitter. You gotta show everybody here.
Very poetic.
All right, video essay people, that's how you start your video.
I mean, it's just funny how he says that, and it's like, yeah, that's the show. Like, that's the show.
Well,
it's he.
And Master Chief famously cared about his image. He was an Instagram influencer as a type of character.
Yeah, he was really, clued into the propaganda and the posters and stuff, Oh my god.
Yeah, look at that.
I actually have to pee.
Well,
it's almost an indictment of the games itself, because he's basically saying that like the Master Chief of the games is the image that he doesn't like.
Right.
That's not the real John 117. I'm the real John Halo.
Well, it is weird, right? It's almost like they're trying to create like a new storyline that supplants. And I gotta say, it's really awkward to think about. You think about a lot of the things that 343 was saying about like Master Chief and Halo 4, and like the way that they talk about the character in this show and the Spartans, it's a little uncanny. It's a little bit weird. It's almost like this is the way that they would have wanted it to be from the very beginning, but unfortunately, Halo already exists and has a storyline and characters. that is difficult to get away from. But if you could recreate it in an alternate timeline, then you can create it where it's like, we're exploring who's the man behind the mask, and he's discovering his humanity and all that shit that they were talking about in Halo 4.
I think the writers really engaged with the child soldier plotline of the books, and they kind of wanted to explore that, but they also knew that they had to include a bunch of references to things from the games.
Well, it's something we've talked about, is that they knew to have Banshees. Well, it's funny that in this season it feels like there was actually a lot less of just that recognizable iconography.
Yeah.
Even though this was meant to be the pivot towards being more faithful, but they knew to have the Spartans in armor that generally looks pretty good. They knew to have like the props for the like assault rifle and the battle rifle and like the gravity hammer. And they knew to have elites and grunts and jackals and banshees and warthogs and stuff. They knew to have all of those things because it's good for marketing. You can put that in the trailer and people will be excited and happy to see that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's all to essentially cover for like the story that they actually want to tell.
Oh, they're going to talk about
this. Yeah, it's all meaningless fluff if the story isn't working and the characters aren't interesting. Like,
it's watching like somebody play with your action figures. And they like have just a really perverted idea of the story that you've been telling with them.
And they're getting the names wrong. It's like they're playing with Transformers, but they're using like G.I. Joe names or something. It's like that's not it.
This is Jan 118. This is my action figure.
You're like reenacting the throne room scene, and they have Palpatine pick up Vader and toss him down the hole, and you're like, "What?
Yeah.
Why did you do?" They're like, "Yay, Palpatine!"
Hello, you just listened to a segment of the podcast Every Frame a Pause, or EFAP. Hosted by YouTubers Mauler, Rags, and Fringy, and joined by a cycling variety of guests across the internet, they critically analyze media with exhaustive detail while pausing at every single frame. Subscribe to the EFAP channel and catch new episodes on Saturdays, as well as catch their smaller videos reacting to the latest and not-so-greatest movies and TV shows throughout the week. You can also subscribe here to EFAP Highlights for the latest shorts, clips, and supercuts, also uploaded throughout the week. Links to all the relevant channels can be found in the description section below, as well as links to their communities on Reddit and Discord. Thanks for watching.